This is 1360 AM.
WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Brought to you from Forsyth Broadcasting. Or listen to us at WNJCradio.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery. A world away, the Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. EnjoyAbaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
EnjoyAbaco.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Caution of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the conservative Commandos Radio Show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. JD is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulation. Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to ManierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Manier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Manier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, and, of course, around the world on the Internet on our new Internet broadcast partners, Patriot News Network at PPN Talk Radio, PatriotsRide.org, and Vigilant Liberty Radio Network, and CPR Worldwide Media. And joining me today as my co-host is Anna Little. Anna, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Glad to be with you, Rick. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, and great to have you with us today, Anna. And boy, this week has gone so fast. It was just a week ago today that you, I, and the entire crew of the Conservative Commandos was at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C., and we sure did have a good time, didn't we, Anna?
We did. You know, there's no better way to recharge your conservative batteries, your conservative activist batteries, than to go down to a conference such as the Conservative Political Action Committee's conference and see all the leaders and listen to their speeches. And let me tell you, they really revved me up.
All right. And we've been running some of those interviews that we've done, that we did down in Washington all week long, and we have some great interviews lined up for our guests today. Anna, would you like to tell our audience about them?
Well, we are going to speak with Carly Fiorina, who is a former business executive, Hewlett-Packard chairwoman and chief executive, and a former California Republican candidate to the United States Senate. And Carly right now is serving as the chairman of the American Conservative Union's Foundation. So that's a very interesting interview. I remember that one, Rick, and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy it.
Yep.
We're also going to talk with my favorite congressman from District 1 in Texas, and that is Louis Gohmert Jr. We just call him Louis Gohmert on the show. He's an American politician and a current Republican U.S. representative from Texas' 1st Congressional District, and in my opinion, he would make a great Speaker of the House.
I totally agree.
Listeners will enjoy speaking with him or actually listening to his recorded interview. And we're also going to have a frequent participant here at Conservative Commandos radio show, David Hoegberg, PhD. Dr. Hoegberg is a healthcare policy analyst for the National Center for Public Policy Research, and he was previously a Washington correspondent for Investors Business Daily, specializing in healthcare and Medicare coverage. And prior to that, he worked as a policy analyst studying healthcare and other issues for various think tanks, including the National Center for Public Policy Research and for the Office of Representative Jeff Fortenberry. So we love David Hoegberg. We know that he's here to debunk Obamacare and anything healthcare related going forward. So that recorded interview is going to be a whole interesting to everyone. And you know, it's great to always put a face with the name.
Absolutely.
On radio, we don't always see our guests.
I totally agree, Anna. That's one of the fun things about doing interviews down at CPAC is to meet a lot of times people that we'll be interviewing throughout the year will be coming by Radio Row where we're set up, and as you say, get to put a face to the name and the voice.
Okay. And then the final interview that we're going to be listening to today is Christine Therese O'Donnell. She's a former Republican Party candidate and conservative activist in the Tea Party movement, and she's best known for her 2010 campaign for the United States Senate seat in Delaware, vacated by Vice President Joe Biden. And she's also right now dealing very directly with the IRS with regard to some persecution that she's undergone as a conservative leader. You know, you don't get attacked by the liberal left unless you're actually doing something right. So we're going to love to listen to Christine O'Donnell today.
You know, I always enjoy speaking with Christine. She's really a genuinely nice person, irregardless of what anyone thinks about her. But she's a very nice, charming young lady. I really like her.
Well, I find her inspirational because Christine O'Donnell stands up. She is purely and very openly herself. And that is what I think the American people crave in leadership. They want real folks living real lives to stand up and lead their government and represent we the people in government. And Christine O'Donnell is excellently qualified to do that. And, you know, whatever the left may have done to attack her, whatever the mainstream media may have tried to portray her as, she is a terrific conservative leader.
Absolutely, indeed she is. Well, Anna, my good friend Anna Little, what is on your radar screen this week, my friend?
Well, you know, we are gearing up for election time. I mean, we are a week away from conventions here in New Jersey, and I'm sure that's going on all over the country. And I think what's most on our radar is, you know, what are we going to do in this 2014 cycle? I think we the people have got to get focused and determine which leaders they're going to be promoting from the grassroots, whether those be incumbents or whether they be challengers. And that's very much on my mind. I think we have to talk about foreign relations as well, though, Rick, because, you know, we've got a missing airplane.
Yeah,
it's a pretty scary situation. There's no evidence of a crash. There's no indication that there are any hostages. So the plane and every passenger on it is completely missing. So we've got to focus on that as it unfolds, as we unravel this mystery. Because, Rick, I don't know who took the plane, but I'll tell you, it's a pretty scary situation. We've already had one incident here in the United States of America where a plane has been used as a weapon of mass destruction. So I don't like the fact that that plane is missing. We also have to talk about Ukraine, and you know that that's been a favorite subject of mine for several weeks now.
Yep.
Crimea was scheduled to have a vote earlier today. I'm going to look for breaking news on that. We were expecting their referendum to be decided, and that would decide whether Crimea itself would secede from Ukraine and become part of Russia or not. And I think that's the first step to Russia taking all of Ukraine. So I think we really need to keep our eyes on what's going on internationally. And it begs the question, Rick, and here's where I think I'll turn it over to you for response. How is it that we get to such a point that the United States of America is reacting to a situation like what's going on in Ukraine right now?
You're asking me, Anna. I would say we have no leadership in Washington.
Yeah.
We have no leadership in the White House. We have no leadership in the State Department. We have no leadership that gets any respect from any other nation in the world. And Anna Little, I think that is it in a crux.
Well, I can't disagree with you. I do think that while it is important for us to focus on the issues that are facing us at home, especially in this very difficult economy, we cannot be caught blindsided by what's going on internationally. And we certainly can't stand back and expect other nations or the United Nations to take care of these issues, because they very seldom do. We have to take the leadership role, or we have to suffer the consequences.
Which we're doing right now. We are suffering the consequences right now. Anna, I think we have been extremely lucky for the first 5 years of Barack Obama being in the White House. But now things are getting serious. We are in a serious mess in the Ukraine. Putin does not respect Obama. Europe does not respect Obama. And this is what we're stuck with.
I agree. We're stuck with it until we can elect someone else. But more importantly, here's what we can control, Rick. We've got to look at what leadership we, the people, are going to elect in 2016. We have to make sure that we don't let this kind of thing happen twice in a row. So with that, I think we're going to head to break, right?
Well, in about 1 minute, and I think that we have to be very careful who we choose in 2016. I think if you look on the Democrat side, the leading candidate as of now would be that Hillary Clinton, and she's the one who I think is just as responsible for the mess that we are in, as far as our foreign affairs. She was also as responsible for the mess at Benghazi as Barack Obama. So this is a lady that needs to be vetted by the voters going into 2016 more than any other candidate. And with that, Anna, we will take it into our break. And you're listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, and of course around the world on the internet. Today's show, it's brought to you by the First Amendment, and it is protected by the Second. And if you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, please go to www.patriotsride.org. Don't go away. Anna Little and I will be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery. A world away, the Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And this is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Anna Little and Rick Trader. And by the way, If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's Conservative Commandos radio show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please tune in CPRWorldwideMedia.com. You can also hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show starting at 5 p.m. East Coast time this evening at CPRWorldwideMedia.com. And you can hear rebroadcast of the Conservative Commandos radio show every afternoon at VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And with that, Anna Little, could you make the introduction of our next guest?
Surely, Rick. Listeners, we have the honor this afternoon of listening to a pre-recorded interview with Carly Fiorina. She's a former business executive, Hewlett-Packard chairwoman and chief executive, and a former California Republican candidate for the United States Senate. Carly currently serves as the chairman of the American Conservative Union Foundation.
Well, listeners, this is Conservative Commandos radio show on location at the Gaylord in National Harbor at CPAC 2014. We are interviewing today, and we're so honored to be doing so, Carly Fiorina from California. Yes, listeners, there are conservatives in California. This is a leading female conservative, and welcome. Very, very happy to have you on the show.
It's great to be with you, Anna. Thank you for having me.
So, Carly, tell us, you've been speaking on the big stage, and, I did hear your speech. What do you think is the most important issue facing conservatives in 2014?
I think there are many important issues, but I think the most important thing we can do is talk to everyone about why our ideas work better for everyone. Stop allowing liberals to say we don't care, or we only care about some, or we're trying to pit one against another. In truth, it's liberals who are pitting people against each other. It is liberals who are prepared to sacrifice other people's lives and livelihoods at the altar of their ideology. We need to reach out to every American, whether they know they're conservatives or not, and say, you know what? If you're poor, if you're challenged, if you have difficulties in your life, our solutions will work better for you. And we need to do it with empathy and compassion, but also with respect for their capabilities and their potential, because everyone has it.
Well, I did hear you in your speech on the main stage talking about women's issues, and the line that I love the most is that every issue is a women's issue. Talk to us about that.
Well, women make up half of this great nation. Women balance the checkbooks at home. Women make the health care and the education decisions at home. Women worry about their own jobs, their husbands' jobs, their children's jobs. I find it insulting that Democrats and liberals believe that the only thing women care about is reproductive rights. I find it insulting. I'm a pro-life woman. I accept and respect not every woman agrees with me, but I think we're all tired of being told that just because we think an abortion at 5 months is inhumane to mother and child, that we're waging a war on women. Or just because we think there's no reason for birth control to be free, that we're waging a war on women. We're not. We know that women care about every issue and can make every issue better.
So very well put. And I'm here today with my co-host Sharon Engel, another leading conservative woman, and I know she has questions and comments she wants to share too.
Well, certainly it was a wild ride in 2010 when you and I were both running in Nevada and in California. And what we saw was truly an interesting, I would say, war on conservative women. Did you feel the impact of that? And would you talk just a little bit about where the real war seems to be being waged against women? And it seems like the liberals want to say it's over reproductive rights, but as a conservative woman, what did we see?
Well, first I would say, as a woman who's operated in a man's world, the technology and the business world for a long time, we as women have to accept that it's different for us. We're scrutinized differently, we're criticized differently, we're caricatured differently, and that applies to liberal women as well as conservative women. However, to your point, the fact that there are women who are truly conservative drives liberals crazy because it totally ruins their storyline. Their storyline is, the only way you can be conservative is you're an aging white man. And when they see a conservative woman stand up and say, no, actually, I'm conservative. And I'm conservative because I know everyone has potential, and I know everyone deserves an opportunity, and I know that conservative ideas work better to lift more people up. that kind of ruins their storyline. So, of course, they're going to attack with even greater vigor than they would attack a conservative man.
But did you find the vigor and vitriol to be very personal?
Of course. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And I just think we have to accept that that's how it's going to be. But what we can't accept is that vigor and vitriol holds us down.
And that's the last word. I've got to tell you, Carly Fiorina, you're an inspiration, not only to Sharon and to myself and to Conservative Commandos, but to those that listen. Where can people go to follow the work that you're doing, to keep up with your schedule, and to be of assistance to you in your work?
If they go onto my website, carlyfiorina.com, they can find out a whole set of things that I'm doing. I'm also the chairman of the American Conservative Union Foundation, and so they can go to the ACU website as well.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, Anna, and there you go. That was the interview that you and Sharon Engel did with Carly Fiorina. And very interesting what she talked about, the alleged war on women.
Yes, very interesting. And as a woman, I'll tell you that there is no war on women as far as conservatives and Republicans are concerned. The war on women seems to be coming from the Democrats. They do so by belittling us, as Carly Fiorina pointed out, by making it appear that the only issue that's important to women is reproductive rights. And that's demoralizing. It's insulting, as Carly Fiorina said. And it limits women. It limits the image of what's important to a woman. You know, we have to remember that we are the leaders. And I say this when I speak to women's groups, Rick. As women, we are the mothers, the sisters, the caretakers. In the case of a mother, we teach right and wrong. We give the orders to our children. And once they turn 18, that shouldn't change. I mean, what was good for them when they're children is good for them when they're adults, too. I don't see any reason for women to take a back seat in this world. I don't see any reason for them to take a back seat or be limited by political activists or by someone with a political agenda. I think what we as women can do is lead. We're naturally built to do that, to lead, to nurture, to help our society grow in the correct direction, the most healthy direction for everyone involved.
You know, Anna, it was very interesting right around our booth on Radio Row, especially on last Saturday afternoon, because within a period of an hour, we had such powerful conservative women voices there. We had Carly Fiorina, we had Christine O'Donnell, we had Sharon Engel. All three ran in senatorial races within the last few years, and we also had yourself, Anna Little, someone who ran in 2 congressional races. What a dichotomy. And when the left talks about a war on women, I don't think the left gives women the opportunity the right has.
I agree with you. I think they're a voting bloc. They're seen as a voting bloc, and they're exploited as a voting bloc by the left. We are exploited as a voting bloc by the left in the same way that those minority groups, and I even hesitate to use the word minority anymore because there's such a large number of folks that are lumped homogeneously into groups, and they're not necessarily groups that they're not necessarily supposed to be all in one group. But those voting blocs are also exploited. So are the elderly. It seems like the agenda of the left is to separate, categorize, compartmentalize, label, and then exploit for political agenda. And it seems like that doesn't stop once people are elected. It seems that if you're a left politician, once you get into office, well, that's your opportunity to promote your political agenda even more. There is no compromise. There is no discussion. There is no opportunity for give and take between the two political parties as long as the left is in charge.
All right, Anna, and with that, we are going to take a break. You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station, and around the world on the internet, on our new internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And hey, please check out our websites, www.conservativecommandosradioshow.com and www.ccrshow.com. Don't go away. Anna and I will be right back with our interview with Congressman Louis Gohmert.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery. A world away, the Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. EnjoyAbaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
EnjoyAbaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Carson of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. JD is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulation. Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to ManierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Manier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Manier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
you can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, fellow patriots, and welcome back once again to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Anna Little is joining me today as my co-host, and if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please go to patriotsride.org. You could also hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show this afternoon at 5 p.m. this evening by going to cprworldwidemedia.com, and you can listen to rebroadcast of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show every afternoon at vigilantlibertyradio.us. And a little, I am going to ask you for the honors of introducing our next guest.
And the honor is all mine, Rick. The next guest, listeners, is the one and only Louis Gohmert Jr. He is a House Republican conservative. He's an American politician, and he's actually the congressman from Texas' 1st Congressional District. I especially like this congressman. His leadership in Congress is of the conservative right, and I think he would make a terrific Speaker of the House in the future. Personally, I see him as an inspirational leader. He is encouraging to those who would come along and become freshman women and congressmen in the future, and I think we're going to thoroughly enjoy this recorded interview with him.
Well, Anna, you said he would make an excellent speaker. I think he would make an excellent whatever he became, be it, say, a congressman, senator, governor, or even a presidential candidate. Louis Gohmert is a solid conservative, the type of man who we need to keep in Washington. And with that, our good friend, Mr. Silent John Forsyth Jr. will throw the switch. John?
Congressman Gohmert, first of all, thank you very much. It's such an honor to have you here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Oh, come on, Anna. I mean, it's not like we're not old friends.
Oh, let me tell you, we could have a segment on the encounters that I've had with you and what a positive influence you've been. But
Public encounters,
yes. Public encounters and all inspirational toward leadership, toward true government. We're very, very proud to have you here at Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Great to be talking.
But we've got so many issues to discuss. I mean, you are a busy guy right now. I mean, first of all, we were just talking about Ukraine. I think, Kevin Wade would agree with me that that's a really big issue right now. Talk to us about Ukraine right now. What are we going to do in response to Russia's invasion?
Well, for one thing, we need to immediately have the president declare that the ballistic missile system that was going into Poland is now back on track, and we are going to put. This is how you deal with people like this. And now that Hillary Clinton has said that she believes Putin is another Hitler, well, the last thing you do when you have another Hitler that has arisen, you don't blow $3.9 trillion without taking care of your military and making sure you have a strong military. I mean, let's face it, probably the most important job, according to the Constitution, is that we provide for the common defense and make sure. I like to think of it in terms of we should be, as a federal government, making sure that the playing field is level, everybody's playing fairly, and then let people compete. But unfortunately, we've gotten it to where the federal government is the player, the coach, and the referee, so nobody else can win. And so in that regard, in getting our own economy going, let's unleash all of the pursuit of energy that this administration has been holding back. Let's get the Keystone Pipeline going again.
Amen.
I mean, and now I have drugged my feet on being supportive of exporting natural gas until we start getting more of our country utilizing this incredible gift that we didn't know we had so much of just 10 years ago. But right now, as a matter of national security, it sure sounds like a good idea to start exporting natural gas, LNG, to Europe because they're not wanting to do anything about a runaway Russian leader.
And that would create, this is Kevin Wade, and that would create American jobs.
Oh, absolutely.
That would create immediate work at ports to build the facilities to export.
Everything.
And we could probably negotiate with Europeans that Americans build the ports that unload in Europe.
Right, but then we could provide them the natural gas that Putin's been able to use to hold them up.
I'd like to talk a little bit.
It's just good all the way around. I don't understand why it's not so apparent to people, even in this administration. Well, but see, that's the problem. You guys, now here at the Gaylord, we're right outside of Washington, D.C., but you keep calling it common sense, but you're in a place where it isn't common. That's the problem.
But that's because our representative government has not been allowed to function properly. I mean, Congressman Gohmert, you know better than anybody sitting here that it is the job of a representative to represent the people, to bring their voice to government.
That's right.
What has happened, at least from the outside looking in, from my perspective, from Kevin's perspective, from Rick, our producer's perspective, this is why Conservative Commandos Radio exists. The voice of the people has been lost. Now, in 2010, we the people stood up.
Yeah,
and we took back
incredible.
The House of Representatives. We need to do it again. We the people need to realize that once doesn't do it. You've got three branches of government. You've got two houses in the legislative branch.
Was it Jefferson that said the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, something along that line? And it really is. Grew up with people in East Texas that said, look, I don't care what the government does as long as they stay out of my business.
Absolutely.
And now they are found, and they're telling me they're getting involved, they're getting out. I mean, I've been shocked at some of the people say, I'm now watching C-SPAN. I'm going, you're kidding. You're watching C-SPAN. He said, I'm worried. Well, that's what happens. If people in America don't care what government does, then it does not stay out of their business. It's all in their business. And so you really do have to be vigilant because the constant push is to have bigger government, more intrusive government, and as we know, as has been said before, you know, when government increases, liberty decreases. I mean, it's a major problem.
And we have here in America certainly learned from our experience that we can't police the world. We can't be in the middle of politics and revolution in every country, all over the world at the same time. However, we do need to learn from World War II also that when we stay out too long, when a dictatorship has begun to annex other countries and begun human rights abuses and, you know, onward and onward, I'm talking about World War II, we have to learn from that as well.
That's right.
There has to be a balance when it comes to foreign policy. Help us with that.
Well, you remember President Obama was belittling Mitt Romney in a debate when he said, you know, that the 1980s called they want their foreign policy back, and and so I was just giving a speech in which I pointed out Neville Chamberlain called he wants his foreign policy back.
Oh my goodness!
That's what this president has been using, and it is a danger. And you don't have to be the world's policeman, and this is one of the things that this administration has been terrible about. And in fairness, some of the problem actually arose in prior administration, but like in Afghanistan, this president is about to pull Americans completely out and turn Afghanistan back over to the Taliban. I mean, that's who's going to take over. And actually, not enough people know, but once we found out that the training for 9/11 2001 occurred in Afghanistan, we didn't send tens of thousands of troops. We sent less than 500, probably around 300 special ops and intelligence people. We provided weapons to help the Northern Alliance. These are tribal people, but because they had such hatred for the radical nature of the Taliban, I mean, these are moderate Muslims that this administration has now branded war criminals because they fight the Taliban the way the Taliban fights. But we We didn't risk tens of thousands of American lives. We gave them weapons, we gave them air cover, we embedded special ops and intelligence, and within just a matter of 3 or 4 months, they totally routed the Taliban. People have forgotten. But for a number of years in Iraq, people were saying, wow, Afghanistan, now that's the way you fight a war.
Right.
And what happened? Well, Taliban was routed. They were completely destroyed. The few that were left were on the run. And then we started sending tens of thousands of American troops into Afghanistan. They became occupiers. Occupiers have never done well in that part of the world. They still don't do well in that part of the world. I had somebody try to correct me and say, well, now, Alexander the Great, he occupied. I said, he died on his way out. I don't consider that a great victory.
Nope.
But anyway, if you allow the enemy of your enemy to take on your enemy, you don't have to be the policeman of the world. You just help the enemy of your enemy, in this case the Northern Alliance, help them take on the Taliban. Let them risk their lives, which they did, lives they gave, and they defeated the Taliban. That was the way to do it.
We can step away from being the world's policeman, but still be a friend to a friend.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I think, too, what we've got to remember, and I hope, Congressman Gomert, that you'll be able to expand on this a little bit, what we've got to remember is that when people do rise up, like the people of Ukraine have risen up, when they go into their parliament and convince their representatives to bring their voice to government, which is what the job of the representative is to do, and that parliament acts appropriately in accordance with the will of the people, that somehow the United States of America, in philosophy, due to our history, we've got to support that in some way.
Well, it's same in Egypt. Here you had this administration allowing a very quick election to take place after the so-called Arab Spring, which many of us knew was resulting in an Arab winter. But you had the Muslim Brotherhood take over. And supposedly, and I say supposedly, Morsi had around 13 million people vote for him. But then he began to abuse the Constitution, use of powers that were not his, get rid of anything that would stand in his way of becoming a monarch or another Chavez like in Venezuela. And so the Egyptian people really did rise up then. That was a real awakening. 20 million were said to have gone to the streets on one occasion, 30 million or so. But it was about twice as many as even Morsi claimed had voted for him, rose up. These were moderate Muslims, they were Jews, they were Christians, they were secularists who said, and I was told they literally joined hands, not just figuratively, literally joined hands, and with people coming up to the Coptic Christian Pope and saying, we're so sorry, I'm Muslim, but I'm so sorry for what's happened. And they rose up against the Muslim Brotherhood. They demanded that the radical Islamists be removed from power. I didn't know until last September, but there was no provision for impeachment in the Egyptian constitution that we helped them get. And they had no provision. Well, the new one that got voted in January has a powerful provision for impeachment. Not only that, they are so serious about correcting the wrongs that the Muslim Brotherhood has done that, of course, when Morsi was removed and because of crimes he's charged with was put in jail and the Muslim Brotherhood was ousted completely from power, they began burning down dozens and dozens of historic churches, killing Christians. In the Constitution that passed like 95%, there's a provision that will require the government to rebuild the churches, the Christian churches that were destroyed. And so in response to this incredible news of the people really speaking up for freedom and against radical Islam in Egypt, what does this administration do? They say we're cutting off all the aid. The 10 Apaches that we were sending over, we're stopping those. We were willing to send tanks and jets and Apaches to the Muslim Brotherhood when the radicals controlled Egypt. But now that it's the people having arisen truly, they are not wanting to send any kind of assistance. And as the interim president pointed out, and later meetings with the military leaders, do you not understand? We use Apaches to keep the Suez Canal open. We hear any threat, we have the Apaches flying. And now we're losing them. We need new Apaches. We need new parts. And now you're saying we're not going to help you keep the Suez open? It's crazy. It's crazy. But we don't have to be the world's policeman. Just help those who are in a place to help themselves. And we wouldn't have had so many thousands die in Afghanistan if we had stayed true. And even in recent couple of years, the Northern Alliance leaders have said, look, you guys are pulling out. The Taliban's going to be back in power. The Constitution that basically you helped give us has such a centralized government that the Taliban can just knock off the president, Karzai, or whoever it is, or co-opt them, as it appears they have, and they can take over Afghanistan again. If you will at least let us elect our own governors, mayors, and select our own police chiefs, then we will have regional strength. The Taliban will not be able to take back over all of Afghanistan, and regionally we can band together and run them out.
But I call that home rule.
Well, it's a federalist system.
Yes.
They said, we're just wanting what you have. And so I bet most Americans have no idea that we helped Afghanistan have a federal government where the president appoints governors, mayors, and police chiefs. He appoints a big part of the legislature. He has purse string control. He even appoints all of the highest level teachers. You can't have that kind of power and not have corruption. And so I said to the Northern Alliance leaders, one of them, Masood, who's a vice president for a while under Karzai, brilliant guy, but I said, what makes you think we in America could help you amend your own constitution? And he said, well, you know how much our Afghan budget, government budget is? I said, no, I don't. He said, in your dollars, around $12.5 billion. You know how much we pay of that $12.5 billion of our own government, our own revenue we've raised? No, about $1.5 billion. And the rest comes from other countries, mostly from the United States. So if you, as the United States, say, we're cutting off all funding today unless you amend the Constitution and allow the regions to elect their own governors and mayors and pick their own police chiefs, we're cutting off every dime. I mean, then he said you could get that amendment through very easily, and we could save this country from the Taliban. And in fairness to President Obama, those things were done before he ever took over as president. You know, he did inherit that, but he certainly hasn't helped matters at all. In fact, one of the guys that he released for humanitarian purposes from Guantanamo, because he was about to die probably, he's been back in Afghanistan for 2 or 3 years. He's maybe the leader of the Taliban now. He's on television regularly saying what they're going to do. He didn't quite die. I'm sure he will someday.
He should have been kept under Obamacare. That could have solved it.
Well, yeah, that may take care of it. You know, let the death panel take over there for him. But anyway, there are things we could do so much better without the cost in American treasure and American lives. But I talked to too many who have lost loved ones in Afghanistan that are heartbroken over what's about to happen if we don't have wisdom take over.
We had a guest here on the show this afternoon who was the parent of a man who was killed in Benghazi. It was a very
in Benghazi.
In Benghazi.
Oh, so was that Ty Wood's dad?
Ty Wood's dad.
Yeah. Well, my heart just breaks for Dorothy Woods. She and Ty had a baby, and she says that baby boy has too much of Ty in him, and so he's a real handful. Wow. But it's outrageous what happened and what continues to happen. Republican leaders have got to stand up and help us get to the truth, but we're not getting there.
The truth is at a premium now. Trust has been broken between the president and the people. And I think that distrust extends to what we'll call the Democrat Party, truly liberal progressives, not old-fashioned Democrats. But
maybe if somebody came up with an expression like, the president lied and people have died.
Did I hear that somewhere before? But now it's time for conservative Republicans to focus on the truth and honesty and character. Even if a voter will disagree with us on some issues, if they know who you are and they believe you are.
Straight.
Yes.
That's right. Makes a difference.
Congressman Gohmert, I know you have to go soon, but before you do, could a minute or two about Go Conservative PAC?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you got the flyer here. But I took a page out of Jim DeMint's book, what he did in the Senate. He started the Senate Conservative Fund because he saw, as I've been seeing in the House, if you don't completely toe the leadership line, then when you need financial help in your district, it's not necessarily forthcoming. And so it's important that conservative members of the House of Representatives know that they can represent their conservative districts, they can stand up for what they know to be right, and there will be people that will help them with contributions and help them raise money, and that's what Go Conservative PAC is all about. And it's Go, G-O-H, conservative, but gohconservative.com, and you get there and can help us out, and that will be a huge help for anybody that will.
And listeners, you know as well as we here at Conservative Commandos Radio what kind of leadership we get out of Congressman Louis Gohmert. We need more of that in all branches of government, and so Go PAC is how we're going to get that done.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much,
It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you so much.
You bet. All right, that was our interview that we did with Congressman Louis Gohmert. I want to thank Anna Little and Kevin Wade for conducting that interview. And Anna, Congressman Gohmert said something in the very early part of that interview. I think a very simple thing that Obama could do to start standing up to Vladimir Putin, and that is approve the missile system going into Poland. And that would be a step Obama can make to show Putin that he's not going to push the U.S. around and we will not be bullied. But I doubt he will do it.
Well, I think Obama is shying away from using any of the military might that the United States offers to the world, frankly. And I think he believes that this is a negative for us rather than a positive. And I disagree. I'm at the exact opposite approach with regard to that issue. It seems to me that if we have a very strong military presence throughout the world, if we are respected as a factor or a country who can react quickly with very effective military action, that becomes leverage for the rest of the world to use against bullies like Vladimir Putin. So, I see it as a positive. Barack Obama sees it as a negative. And the difficulty that we have right now is he's in the White House.
Right.
He is approaching things to lead from behind. I have never heard that expression before listening to him. I do not believe it is possible to lead from behind. I think it's an impossibility.
Another thing that the congressman said that I thought was very telling, that if Hillary Clinton, she's now saying that Putin is the new Hitler, and if he is, then we need to be increasing the size of our military, not cutting it like Barack Obama wants to do. Hey, Anna, with that, we are up against a break, and you're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Anna and I are coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station, and, of course, around the world on the Internet, on our new Internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Don't forget, check out our websites, www.conservativecommandosradioshow.com and ccrshow.com. Two different sites, different information on each one of them. Please don't go away. A couple of great interviews coming up in the next hour with David Hoberg and Christine O'Donnell.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Carson of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. J.D. is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulation. Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to ManierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Manier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Manier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
You
can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And this is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Dan Little and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, and of course around the world on the internet. And you can hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening by going to CPRWorldwideMedia.com, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, and at 5 p.m., right as we end our live broadcast, switch over to, whoa, I made a mistake. At 10:10 this evening, it's PatriotsRide.org. PatriotsRide.org at 10:10 this evening, Eastern Time. And at 5 o'clock, switch over to CPRWorldwideMedia.com for a rebroadcast of yesterday's show. And you could also hear a rebroadcast of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And with that, Anna Little, we're about to play our next interview. Will you make the introduction, please?
Surely, Rick. Listeners, we have the honor of listening to a pre-recorded interview with Dr. David Hochberg. He's a healthcare policy analyst for the National Center for Public Policy Research. Previously, he was a Washington correspondent for Investors Business Daily, specializing in coverage of healthcare and Medicare. And prior to that, he worked as a policy analyst, studying healthcare and other issues for various think tanks, including the National Center for Public Policy Research, and for the Office of Representative Jeff Fortenberry. In this recorded interview, Dr. Hochberg leads us through what's going on with healthcare and how we should, as we the people, be approaching this and what to expect.
Well, Anna, before we start the interview, let me just say that a lot of these great interviews we secured last week down at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C. And if you've missed this week's Conservative Commandos Radio Show, you've missed guests like Christine O'Donnell, and Carly Farina, and Congresswoman Sandy Adams, and Dr. Ben Carson, and James O'Keefe, also people like Dinesh D'Souza. So you got to listen to Conservative Commandos Radio Show every day because we bring you the absolute best in conservative voices. And I'm going to ask Mr. John Forsyth Jr. to please play that next cut. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. And we are coming to you from the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C. And we're very pleased to have with us Dr. David Hochberg, who's a healthcare policy analyst for the National Center for Public Policy Research. Previously, Dr. Hochberg was a Washington correspondent for Investors Business Daily, specializing in his coverage of healthcare and Medicare. Dr. Hochberg, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Great to have you in person for a change.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Great to have you with us. Dr. Hochberg, here we are at the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Feel free to call me David, please.
Thank you so much. David, here we are. We've been talking to a lot of candidates here on the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. One thing that I say to them is, if I were a candidate, if anybody asked me any question about anything, no matter what it was, as part of my answer, Obamacare would be in it. Would I be wrong?
I think certainly for this year, yes. It is just such a gold mine for politicians who oppose Obamacare this year that you want to bring it up as often as you can, point out all the problems with it, and probably be a good idea to have a talking point or two about how we reform the system, get ourselves to a free market system. So you have something a little positive to talk about as well. But there are plenty of negative things to talk about, and it's really baked in the cake. I think it's going to be a big issue this year, probably going to carry over into 2016 as well. I mean, I don't really see how it wouldn't.
Talking about that, what has Obamacare done to the pricing of insurance and also the choices and quality of insurance policies in the individual market?
Yeah, I have a new study out that looks at that. It's at our website, nationalcenter.org, and the name of the study is Obamacare Exchanges, Less Choice and Higher Prices. And basically what I did is I looked at the options for a single 27-year-old and a 57-year-old couple and compared them to some websites that sold health insurance like ehealthinsurance.com back in 2013, and then compared them what are currently in the exchanges in 45 different states. And on balance, I mean, you had far more options. Off the top of my head here, I think a 27-year-old would have had, on average, about 10 more choices on e-health insurance than they do on the exchange. And I also looked at how many policies cost less than the lowest cost policy on the exchange. And there were loads of them. In fact, in every state I looked at, for both 57-year-olds and 27-year-olds, there were plenty of policies that cost less than the cheapest policy on the exchange. And the final really interesting thing I found is that even if you get a subsidy, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be getting a cheaper policy. I looked at this for 27-year-olds, and in I think just about every exchange that I looked at, if you were making, what I looked at was a 27-year-old making about $25,000 a year, and in most areas you're going to qualify for a subsidy. You would still have quite a few policies on like e-health insurance and others that would cost less than even if you were subsidized. Not for 57-year-olds so much, because the way the subsidy calculation works, the older you get, the bigger the subsidy is going to be. But nevertheless, the subsidy does not guarantee that you're going to get lower cost insurance.
David, I know you're a busy man, but do you ever watch television?
I try.
You try. Cracks me up. Last week Harry Reid went into a rant how it's all a lie about it's a lie when you hear that health care was going up in price and that deductibles were going to go higher and premiums were going to go higher and choices were going to be cut. And then I see these ads, and it burns me up when I see our taxpayer dollars buy television time to promote this thing, but they seem to find these young people somewhere, and I don't know where they get them, who rave about Obamacare. Have you seen these?
Oh, sure.
What do you think? You know the facts. What does this make you think? Does it make your head want to bust like mine?
No, I just I find them bemusing. I mean, they're not working. The young people are not, by and large, signing up. Certainly not in the numbers that the Obama administration wants them to. They would like around 38 to 40% of the exchanges to be comprised of the 18 to 34-year-olds. Right now it's at about 25%. And so I really don't think young people are finding a lot, really a lot of value in the exchanges. And I think that's reflected by the sign-up numbers. I also think it's reflected by the fact that there doesn't seem to be a lot of uninsured people who are signing up for the exchanges. It's mostly people who had insurance in the individual market previously and now are able to go on and get an actual subsidy for their insurance. Given that there's a lot of younger people that are uninsured, if the uninsured are not signing up, it's really just, this is not a boon for the younger folks.
Dr. Hochberg, I'm really interested in the logistics of trying to implement this Obamacare law. It seems to have been a complete logistical nightmare for the Obama administration to put this monstrosity into effect. But there's been another extension of a deadline, and I believe it's happened this week. I believe there's an announcement. I'm referring to an article in the Wall Street Journal, so it's new information that's come out. But it says that consumers can keep insurance plans that don't comply with the federal health care law for another 2 years. Now, I frankly am flabbergasted by this. I mean, the whole point
You shouldn't be. It's very easy to explain. There's an election coming up.
I see.
And the administration does not want lots of cancellation letters coming out in September and October, right before the voters head to the polls. Someone asked me if Obamacare could be fixed, and I replied recently, how do you fix the Titanic? Once you've hit the iceberg, the rest is a foregone conclusion. What President Obama is doing is now just sort of doling out the lifeboats for things like individual insurance, being able to keep your insurance, initially extending delaying the employer mandate. Now it's delayed for another year for people with companies that have between 50 and 99 employees, and more just keeps on coming. So, right now, like I said, he's just trying to distribute the lifeboats, and kind of what you're seeing is, I think, the slow motion implosion almost of this lock.
Well, Dr. David Hoberg, it's great to do this interview face-to-face rather than over the phone. We always appreciate you coming on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we appreciate your time, and thanks for coming by.
Well, thank you for having me.
Take care. God bless. All right, that was our interview with Dr. David Hoberg that we did at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C. And, Anna, we're up against another break, so I think we'll take that little break right now, give us a little extra time on the other side. But you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader. And we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station, and around the world on the internet, on our new internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Please don't go away. Anna and I will be back with our interview with Christine O'Donnell.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, I'm smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, fellow patriots. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader. And it makes me laugh to see what's important to the liberals. You know, to the conservatives, what is important is our defense, is our economy, is our debt, is Obamacare. But let's just look for a minute what is so very important to the liberals these days. Okay? Out in drought-stricken California, courts rules that the Delta smelts should get the water over people. And in Boston, the liberal mayor of Boston, Martin Walsh, said that he's going to make another push to let gay veterans openly march in the St. Patrick's Day Parade just days before the pipe and drum bands roll into South Boston. And then in New York, you've got this new idiot mayor who says he won't be participating in the St. Paddy's Day parade. But what he's interested in is making sure that the schools in New York celebrate 3 Muslim holidays a year. So it kind of shows you, Anna, a little where the priorities are, the liberals are.
Yeah, it's all about their political agenda, and it matters not what else is going on in the world.
Surely not. Surely not. It's a very interesting interview that you did with Dr. David Hochberg talking about Obamacare. But I guess, you know what? I just had a thought, Anna. If I was a Democrat running for a political office, I wouldn't want to talk about it either, actually. So I might want to talk about the Dallas Mart or the St. Paddy's Day Parade.
Anything but be held accountable for the biggest mistake the Democratic Party's ever made.
Hey, Ann, I want to bring into a little argument that I am having with one of my Facebook friends. You know that I am great for having little debates with my Facebook friends. I was having a conversation the other day with one of them, and he said that Republicans needed to set a positive image, that they needed to take the high road, and that's the way to get elected. And we were referring to Obamacare and the other things that are going on in the country. And what I said to him is, yes, but I also think that on the other hand, we must continue to point out the failures of Obamacare. How more people are losing their insurance than getting insurance. How people are being charged more for insurance through Obamacare. And how deductibles are increasing under Obamacare. How people are losing their choice of doctors and hospitals. I think it needs to be a two-pronged attack. Let's sell a positive message, but we also must continue to point out to everyone that of the failures of Obamacare. I also pointed out to him a poll that was done recently at CNN where that the approval for Obamacare has actually come up 4 points since December. And I use this as an example why we must continue to point out the failures of Obamacare since we don't have a mainstream media that will do the job. What's your take?
Well, I think you're probably right about that. I mean, frankly, whenever the Democrats or the liberal left-wing media comes after a Republican, you don't hear anybody saying they've got to be more positive. You don't hear anybody saying they've got to change their subject matter. The only time you're told by anybody that Republicans have to be reasonable and Republicans have to back off is when we're being effective and our message makes sense. And therefore, there's a defensive reaction by the left because they're under attack appropriately and they don't have an answer that's appropriate. So that's the problem here. And so just because we happen to be effectively telling the truth about something and it isn't exactly good news, doesn't mean that we should back off and change direction and change the subject. I mean, yes, we do have to put a proactive message forward. We have to be doing something and going somewhere, not just picking somebody else apart, and I do agree with that. However, I don't think the right wing or the Republican Party are actually doing that. I think we are moving things forward. I remember making a long list of job bills that the House of Representatives put forward toward a struggling economy and a solution toward creating jobs in the private sector, allowing private sector employers to create jobs in the private sector. And it was Harry Reid and the liberal-led Senate that wouldn't consider a single one of those bills. You know, it's not Republicans being negative. We are leading. We are putting things forward, and it is the liberal left that will not allow any agenda but their own political agenda to go forward. And, you know, that doesn't mean we change our tune. We've got to expose that when that's what's going on.
All right, Anna, thank you for that. We are going to take a little break. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360 and around the world on the internet. And another reminder to listen to a rebroadcast of our show at 10:10 this evening at patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m. when we go off the air, please switch over to cprworldwidemedia.com for a rebroadcast of yesterday's show. Please don't go away. On the other side, we'll have our interview with Christine O'Donnell.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. EnjoyAbaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
EnjoyAbaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Carson of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. JD is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulation. Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to ManierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Manier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Manier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Next on the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, we're going to play you, it's more of a conversation than an interview that Anna Little and Sharon Engel did with Christine O'Donnell. Christine is a former Republican Party candidate and conservative activist in the Tea Party movement, best known for her 2010 campaign for the U.S. Senate seat against Delaware, seat in Delaware that was vacated by Joe Biden. So this is our conversation with Christine O'Donnell. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C. And one of the things I enjoy about being down here is being surrounded by beautiful, smart, intelligent, conservative women, which I am right now. I'm joined by my co-host, Sharon Engel, and Anna Little. And speaking of smart, intelligent, conservative women, Anna Little, we do have a very special guest.
Yes, we do, Rick. And I'm especially excited because this is a lady who is still leading the conservative march and saving the United States. We have the one and only Christine O'Donnell with us here live at the Gaylord at CPAC 2014. Christine, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to see you both again. I mean, it's been a long time, but you both look great.
Well, last time I saw you, you came into New Jersey for me, right, for which I was extremely grateful. And I also had that honor back in 2010 when Sharon came in for me. So we are quite a team, we three ladies. But Christine, you're not done yet. You've been on the stump of late with regard to this IRS targeting of conservative organizations, and you have a story of your own to tell.
Yes, absolutely. Mine is my personal experience with the IRS is different than targeting, and I'm not saying that when groups were targeted or treated unfairly, treated with scrutiny they didn't deserve, I'm not saying that that's different or any less than what happened to me, but my case is much more specific. About a year ago, a federal investigator from TIGTA, which is the Treasury Inspector General Tax Administration. It's a long mouthful acronym, but basically the internal affairs of the IRS. This federal agent came to me, met me, knocked on my door in Wilmington, Delaware, sat down, personally met with me, and told me that they had evidence that my tax records were inappropriately accessed on March 9th, 2010. He said, "Does that date mean anything to you?" Coincidentally, that was the date that I announced my U.S. Senate campaign. My press release went out at about 10 o'clock in the morning on March 9th. Somewhere around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, someone inappropriately accesses my tax records. And then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's an erroneous tax lien filed with Newcastle County against me. And that tax lien was widely circulated among the media, a copy of the tax lien on a home that I no longer owned. It was a mistake, and we fought it, and the IRS ultimately, a couple weeks later, went, "Oh, it was a computer glitch," and dismissed it as an accident. But it doesn't matter, even years later on my book tour, people would write about me, the candidate with the tax problem, and so these three things all happened on March 9th, and it's very suspicious, and fortunately, by the grace of God, there are 3 investigations into what's going on. And I'll tell you, I have to emphasize the grace of God, because as you both know, the campaign trail, especially for conservative women, is grueling. And I finally got to the point in my own personal life, in my own heart, where I was resolved and okay with, I'm never going to set the public record straight on this stuff. And that was okay. I was going on with my life, and then the knock on the door came. Soon as you let it go, the good things start to happen. So this fight is really happening on its own. I'm grateful.
Well, I want to thank you for standing strong in the face of all of that pressure. It can be very intimidating to have an entire government agency come at you the way you have been targeted. Now, I'm going to use the word targeted because
Absolutely.
I believe that's what happened to you.
Yeah.
And, the fact that your case is so specific means that the public needs to know about it. And that's why I think you're very brave. You're a courageous, conservative woman out here talking about this issue so that everyone else can be protected in the future. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, you know what? You bring up a very good point about everyone else. Everyone else is potentially the next target. And you think about what's even worse is if these government employees can do a random routine check, which is what the David Smith, who accessed my record, said it was a routine check. Side note, there's a Rule 6103 that says that it's illegal to do that. But that doesn't matter. If they can get away with doing that, with basically breaking the law, and there are no consequences, imagine what's going to happen when the IRS takes over our medical records.
Good
Remember
Lord.
that under Obamacare, they're going to have access to our medical records.
Sharon.
Well, I just think of illegal search and seizure. You know,
Yes,
they're supposed to have a reason to come in and search our records, a reason to come in and look at what's going on. And I know that we were talking about what went on in the 2010 campaign. Right after the campaign, I said, you know, the FEC said they were going to do just a routine audit on my FEC reports. As candidates, we don't necessarily report to the IRS. We report to the FEC. So they are the governing agency that does the auditing. And here we go into this audit. I said, what are you looking for?
Right.
Well, it's just routine. We're not sure what we're going to find. And after 3 years, we finally settled that. I was talking to you, Christine, you had that same experience.
Absolutely. I believe that this administration is using the IRS and the FEC as their personal political weapon, as if it's one of their tools in their arsenal. And these emails that are coming out from Lois Lerner are revealing that. It's just people want to, the liberals who love him, want to go, blah, 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 I'm not listening. And you know what, though? We're going to continue the fight. Because that's exactly what happened to me. And the FEC is trying to get me to settle with some of the things that they're accusing me of. And I'm saying no, because then they win on so many levels. Because number one, not everybody is going to step up to run for office now. I mean, if they think if I do what Anna or Sharon or Christine did and I run for office, I'm going to have the full weight of the IRS and the FEC against me. Not me. Pick someone else. And that's a shame because we need good people.
I agree, Christine, but I think what we've got to do, and this is why I'm so very proud of you, and I'm so grateful to you, what we've got to do is we've got to fly in the face of this. We've got to make sure that when we are attacked or targeted by a government agency, by a powerful fellow politician or fellow candidate or person of political influence, we have to make sure that we stand up, we speak out in our own defense, or perhaps just point out what is wrong with the targeting that's going on and survive it.
Right.
And Christine, that's what you've been doing.
Thank
Sharon,
you.
you've more than survived it.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about this true war on women. It is the war on conservative women, and we're pointing out the ways that they attack us now. Christine, you and I both got some real personal, nasty attacks. Talk about some of that nasty attack and how that has followed you on into your private life since 2010.
Right. Well, it is very difficult. And I was sharing with the Washington Times because I just started, I'm going to be writing a column for them. So a reporter was doing a piece on me, and she asked me about some of that stuff. And I tried to explain to her that it's not something that you can ever truly understand unless you've experienced it. You have to go into a crowded room full of people and meet them and talk to them, and you sit there and you wonder who's thinking what, and you hear people say, like with me, she has a tax lien, she's a tax... You hear them whispering these things, and you have to find the courage and remember why you're doing it. And for me, it was meeting the people. Hearing the people say, you're an everyday person, you're helping me see that everyday Americans can get up and stand up. And that's what gave me the courage to look past all the nastiness. And they do it to shame you off the battlefield. And unfortunately, they are succeeding right now. I've seen a lot of people who once had interest in stepping up and running for office, as they see all this stuff going on with the IRS and the FEC being used against us, they are changing their minds. They are being silenced, and that's why we have to stand up and go no. And we're starting we started the Legal Offense Fund. And notice I say offense, because we are going to go on the offense with this. And with Cleta's help, our mutual lawyer, do whatever we can to fight back against the IRS, to fight back against the FEC, to expose what's going on.
That is how you're going to change it, and I am so glad to hear you say that. You know, it's always about leadership, but leadership comes from within the strong heart of one or a few great Americans. That's how this nation was founded, and that's how it's going to be saved. So you just said a mouthful, and I hope that by watching you do that, those people that may have been discouraged will think better of the discouragement and come back out and fight with us.
Right. Well, we're here at Conservative Commandos Radio Show, live from CPAC, talking to Christine O'Donnell, Anna Little, and I, and Christine, and we're talking about what the true war on women really is, and that is a war on conservative women that has really tagged us in so many ways. And as Christine was saying, it's difficult in some ways to come back from that, but we have to come back. I know every time I go out speaking on a speaking tour, I have several people that say, I came tonight because I was curious to see if you're as crazy as the media portrayed you. And I'm always dumbfounded that they will admit that was the only reason they came out was just to make sure that I wasn't exactly what Harry Reid had said or the media had said.
Well, we women are in charge. See, that's why they have to attack us. See, we're the nurturers. We're the ones who run the household. We tell our children what's right and what's wrong. We teach them how to live good lives. And I don't know why we relinquish that when they turn 18. We shouldn't.
Well, now Barack Obama says it should be 26, so you don't. You have to financially take care of them until they're,
That's right. And so we were really getting to this topic of solutions. Yeah. How do we solve this going forward so that more conservative women are willing to step up and really fight for what's wrong with this country? So go ahead. Now, you were talking about the offensive legal fund.
Right.
Let's talk about some other solutions, some things that we can do to encourage conservative women to get out there and get in the fight.
I think one of the first things that we also have to keep in mind is banding together. You know, we really have to reunite as a movement and continue to go forward because they're coming at us with a battering ram and with every single thing that they can to get us to stop. And I had a reporter from Roll Call ask me, well, the Tea Party is now 5 years old and they haven't fully accomplished what they expect. What's your take on their failure? And I went, wait a minute, they're 5 years old. Like, that's it. And look at the influence that they've had so far. And I reminded him that any significant movement in this country, any real political shift for the good in our nation, in our very young nation, didn't happen in 5 years. Most of it happened in 5 decades. And I would argue that the founding of our nation didn't really fully cement until after the War of 1812. Because those founding fathers, they didn't go on speaking tours and have book deals. They ran around and hiding with bounties on their head. Because King George wanted to do exactly what's happening to us. They wanted to ruin their reputation so that no one would listen to them, so that they wouldn't have the leadership and influence that they had. They tried to, get them imprisoned and every other means of intimidation they could.
Bankrupt them,
exactly. And then 5 decades later, 5 decades later from when they first started getting together, even before 1776, after the War of 1812, King George finally gave up and said, whatever, let them have their country.
Well, and I'm glad that you called it a movement, not a party. What the liberal media has done, and in some respects what an establishment Republican group has done, is try to push this into the margins by calling it some kind of an organization, which all of us know there is no organization. If there were, we would say, well, then who's the president? And can we go to this person and have them issue a very succinct policy statement? And that isn't happening. What we know this to be is truly a grassroots movement that is the silent majority that we know is about 80% of this country.
Exactly.
Tell us, Christine, what you're finding when you're talking really with real people. What are the issues that they're the most concerned about, and why do they look to you for leadership?
Well, that's an excellent question, Sharon, because the answer to that question goes back to the statement about the Tea Party's influence and roll call this reporter trying to say that it hadn't succeeded. Right now, when you hear guests on whether it's MSNBC or CNN, beyond Fox News, saying that we can't continue to run this country into the ground financially, that the debt is out of control, and right now what's going on with Russia, what happened to our sovereignty. You hear them echoing what the Tea Party, the issues that the Tea Party brought into the forefront of the public debate. Now, they will never claim that these kind of thoughts are at the top of their mind or that they're paying attention to these things because of the influence of the Tea Party, but I would certainly say that it's this movement, exactly like what you said, Sharon. This is a movement, and whether the Tea Party label eventually fades, there is this force of people who are concerned about our freedoms and about what it means to be an American, and recognizing that our country is about to fall apart economically, and we all have to do something about it.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. I believe here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we have repeated over the years that we the people are in charge and that we do need to direct our government. And it doesn't matter what label the lamestream media, I think Sarah Palin coined that term, but I love it. The lamestream media, whatever label they impose upon us, we the people are just that, we the people. And we're awake now, and we're not going away. And so whatever the left thinks with regard to this abuse, this targeting, this intimidation, whatever they think they're going to accomplish with it, they're wrong. Because wherever Christine O'Donnell is, there's going to be someone behind her and another person behind them. And it's just never going to end until we, the people, have our voices heard, right, and we direct our government as the founders were intent upon making sure we did. You can have a thought and discuss it over a beer at the pub, but when you put it on paper, you mean for that to be followed.
Right.
And those references go back to the founding of this nation.
And Anna, I think it's an interesting fact, and why this still keeps coming up, is that Christine didn't go away. She didn't leave the scene. I didn't go away. I didn't leave the scene. Carly Fiorina is still on the scene. Sarah Palin is still very much on the scene. So is Michelle Bachmann on the scene. I think that drives them crazy, and it's why those trolls out there, keyword Sharon Angle, keyword Christine O'Donnell, they follow us. They try to attack and attack and attack. Do you find that to be the case with you too?
And eventually
you didn't go away, and they want you to go away, and they seem to think that by continuing the attack, we will go away.
Right.
Are you going away?
No, but I'll tell you, it has been hard. But and I'm grateful though for the people, the conservatives online who come to our defense. And that's always encouraging when you check your Twitter or Facebook and you see something nasty, but then you see someone immediately follow up with such, strong words of encouragement, and that really is what keeps me going. I'm not going away, and it's only because of the encouragement and the prayers of our supporters and the fellow people in our movement.
Well, Christine, I'm glad to hear that you're not going away. I know this is going to sound a little bit twisted, but you need to take it as a compliment that you're being targeted and attacked, because if you weren't doing something very, let's say, worthwhile and successful, you wouldn't be worth the effort. So,
that's right.
You've got to remember that when you're being attacked, it's because you've been doing something right. You've been accomplishing something. The same is true of you, Sharon. When you're attacked, when you're targeted, when you're the victim of a fishing expedition by the FEC or whoever it is that the government of the day chooses to use for political purposes, you've got to remember that you've done something right. You are succeeding. You're already very influential, and things have changed because of you, and that's why you're being targeted. And so if you can just garner the strength from that, You know, what I'm finding, even in my small state of New Jersey, which is, you know, a blue state, you very well know that, right?
Yeah.
Both of you.
I grew up there. Yeah.
Even in New Jersey, I've found that our conservative movement, which really hasn't had a victory. I mean, we have a couple of conservative congressmen who have won in those particular districts, but Chris Christie, as a governor, was the closest we could come to a conservative governor, and, you know, we lost the Senate seat last year. It's a very liberal Democrat who's holding that seat. So we've got work to do on the ground. But I'll tell you, everyone that came out in New Jersey and walked for the Little for Congress campaign, we called them Anna's Army because there were 125 on a street corner. Each one of them has gone off to build their own little group.
Oh, that's great.
So while you might not see them on the street corner today, they'll be there tomorrow, and they'll have their own 125 followers with them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's so encouraging. And I'll tell you, women in your position, getting out there on the front line, you're paving the way, you're pioneering for the next generation. And that's something to keep in mind, like you said. You may not have won that race, but you cleared a path and made it a whole lot easier for the person who's going to come after you.
Well, let me just say, I think all three of you women shock the world. Okay. Now, here we have Anna Little, who won the Republican nomination, going against a woman who spent $500,000, and Anna spent about $22,000. And then you have Christine O'Donnell, who shocked the world by winning a Republican nomination against a well-seated Republican, big name in Delaware, a name that just every Delawarean knew. And then we have Sharon Engel, who again shocked the world by winning a nomination and should have won an election. Probably got more votes than the guy that was declared the winner, but through, in my opinion, voter fraud was taken away. So I think all three of you women are amazing examples of what can be done with hard work. Hard work, dedication, and the right message that the people hear, the people, and that resonates with the people.
Well, and you've got it right, Rick. It is the people. I could have never done anything if I hadn't had that grassroots swell of support. They saw it. They said, this is it. This is the right message. These are the right issues. And we see you as a champion. We're ready to go. Well, you can't do that by yourself. You have to have an Anna's Army. And I'm glad you pointed that out. I know Christine had just a groundswell of support as well. It isn't about the money. It's about the people.
Well, those nominations are just the first step. I look at what's going on here as long-term. I think a lot of people the mistake a lot of people make is they think in too short of terms, okay? They think, well, oh, fine, we did great in 2010 and the war is over and we won, and they sit back. Well, that's not what happens. It is long-term. It's like a battle. And I love to use the example of the Revolutionary War. During the Revolutionary War, George Washington was engaged in 13 major battles. Now, a lot of those 13 battles, he only was victorious in 3 of those. 2 of those were very small, the Battle of Trenton and the Battle of Princeton, and the last big battle, the Battle of Yorktown. He lost all the other battles. But what George Washington didn't lose is he didn't lose the army, and he didn't lose the war. So it's long-term. So what the 3 of you did were just first steps. Not the be-all, end-all, but just the first steps of taking our country back.
And what you have just said there, Rick Trader, is why we need to be involved with you and Conservative Commandos Radio Show. You've just brought tears to my eyes. And that's the theory. What you've just expressed is the theory, the dream that keeps us going. You see,
well, he made me feel guilty because I haven't lost 13 battles yet.
Well, that means you've got a few more, I guess, to go.
Yes.
But, you know, I think that it is important for our listeners to realize, and for those who are active in the trenches in the conservative movement, to realize that you don't win everything in a single election cycle, but that every cycle where you're active, there's some piece you've accomplished you can build upon. And you will attain victory in the end. The only sure loss is if you quit. So don't quit, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's
Can I
what we
also
want.
talk a little bit about divine intervention, also taking us back to the Revolutionary War? Can we all agree that George Washington was indispensable? In all those major battles, Washington led from ahead. There are many instances that he was out in front of his lines and between the British and American lines. At the Battle of Brandywine, there's a story that a British soldier had him in his sights, but because of rules of engagement at that time, they did not shoot officers. This British soldier said he had him dead to rights if he just pulled the trigger. At the Battle of Monmouth, George Washington rode between the lines up and down many times, and the British did fire on him. His hat was hit, his clothing was hit, his body was never touched. It was almost like a divine intervention there. So where I'm going is that, yes, you have your scars, the three ladies. Yet you fought hard, you fought the great fight, but I don't think the war is over.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. The war is not over.
And that's right. I wanted to ask Christine, since you bring up divine intervention, talk about a little bit about some of the things that you felt were real divine interventions during your political
I think just the fact
career.
that I got involved in politics is divine intervention, and there's too many to consider. But I think that it is my faith that keeps me going, because with everything that happened, and you both can relate to how difficult it is, the encouragement that kept me going was the promise that God is going to use all things for His good.
Oh,
if we continue to
my
serve
life
Him.
verse, Romans 8:28.
Exactly.
Well, in my case, I like
this is all going to be used for good somehow. Go ahead.
That's right, and I like the reference in the Bible to God using the weak things of the world.
Right.
Because I stand 4'11" and a half. And let me tell you, when I do something, I roll up my sleeves and I get to work, and sometimes we've got all the pieces we need when we start, and sometimes we've got to find some along the way, right?
Right.
So I love that phrase about using the weak things of the world. I think the most inspiring moment from a spiritual perspective in my campaign experience was getting together. We used to meet at an IHOP restaurant. It happens to be in Keyport, New Jersey, for anyone who's a New Jersey resident. But the IHOP restaurant, and we'd have 30, 50 people at a meeting, and they would not allow us, myself and the campaign team, to leave the premises until we had sung together a cappella. We didn't have any musicians in the room. We were singing God Bless America.
Aww.
And that was very spiritually moving for me. So if there was something that kept me strong on the campaign trail, it was that the people supporting me were invoking God before we moved from one place to another, and that's amazing.
In my campaign in 2010, you mentioned the primary. I was at 5% behind two very well-funded establishment candidates, and then there were
Including
various.
a beauty queen, wasn't one a beauty queen?
Miss New Jersey, actually.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, former Miss New Jersey, and so we had this going into April 15th. The primary election was 6 weeks away. And I remember going to prayer in my prayer time that morning, and I said, God, here I am at 5%. I believe in you, and I believe in your victories, but you have to show up. This is not going to happen if you don't show up. And at 11 o'clock that morning, I got a call from the Tea Party Express saying, be in Washington, D.C., we're going to endorse you. I also got a call that day from Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America. At the time, I'd been battling with the NRA. Please, you know my stand on gun rights. You know Harry Reid, and they were dragging their feet. But Larry Pratt said, Gun Owners of America, we're going to endorse you. I got a call from 2 days later from Phyllis Schlafly saying, we're going to endorse you. We've made that decision. We're going to endorse you. And the day after that, the Club for Growth said, we're going to endorse you as well. And finally, on Friday evening, I got the endorsement of Mark Levin. By the end of the week, I had gone from 5% to 40%. And I ask you now, did God show up?
God showed up with a vengeance.
And when people say, well, we won that election, I say, oh, no. God showed up. And, you know, we can't ever touch his glory. We always have to know when God is in something, he gets the glory.
That's right. Amen.
This is 1360 AM.
WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Brought to you from Forsyth Broadcasting. Or listen to us at WNJCradio.com.